When it comes down to it, what are we at our core? We are North American Waterfowler. Hello and welcome to the North American Waterfowler podcast. My name is Elliot and thank you for joining me today. I had not intended on posting a podcast today, but I had this interview pop up with someone I think you're really going to enjoy hearing from. And so I did the podcast on Monday, and I decided I want to get this out as quickly as I can because I had so much fun with this interview. So the interview you're about to watch is my conversation with Matt Light, 11-year NFL veteran, played for the New England Patriots alongside Tom Brady, actually was left tackle for the Patriots, 3 Super Bowl wins. And so this was so much fun to be able to talk to him. Now, the reason I interviewed him is he has a foundation called the Light Foundation, and they are heavily involved in getting youth into the outdoors. Now, Matt kind of specializes in turkey hunting, and he has the sweepstakes coming up where you can enter and try to win an all-expense-paid trip on a turkey hunt in Florida with him and some others. So he's going to be talking about that and his background in the outdoors, which is extensive, and everything that he has going on. But I did take this opportunity to really talk a lot of football with Matt because I just have never had the chance to interview an NFL veteran, and I wanted to talk with him and ask him a bunch of questions about what it was like to live that lifestyle and live that life. So that's what you're going to see, my conversation with 3-time Super Bowl champion and left tackle, the main person in charge of protecting Tom Brady for 11 years. And we're going to have that conversation. And there is a story in here that he is going to tell called The Tom Brady of Turkey Hunting that you've got to listen to. You've got to hear it. And there's a video that goes along with this story. I'm going to be putting that video up on the Facebook group. The North American Waterfowler podcast Facebook group is where you can see that, or you can just go to Matt Light's website, which we'll be providing that for you too, and you can see it there. It's a fantastic video, and I think after you listen to this interview, you're going to want to check it out. So let's go ahead and talk about the sponsors real quick, and then we will get right into my interview with Matt. Don't forget, as the off season gets into full swing, we all know we're going to need things. We're going to be purchasing some things. So before you make your purchase, make sure you check out fabrand.com, its final approach, and all of their lineup of gear. fabrand.com. The code there is FDH10 for 10% off. Motion Ducks decoy spreader system. I can't tell you how invaluable it is to have motion on the water. I know from my app, the North American Waterfowler app, that the number one factor in killing ducks is motion on the water. And so that is the best jerk rig on the market, motionducksdecoys.com. And again, that's FDH10 for 10% off there as well. And as always, OnX is the number one innovation that I have ever experienced in my life, other than the spinning wing decoy, to improving waterfowling and your ability to kill ducks. So please check out the partners. If you want to get more of this content, you can go over to patreon.com/freelance duck hunting and join us over there for all sorts of extra content. I've got a bunch of interviews coming up, and you're going to have the opportunity to watch those live and comment and ask questions along the way. So go on over to freelance duck hunting or patreon.com/freelance duck hunting for that. And starting new, I'm going to be posting these podcasts on YouTube in video form. I'm going to be doing that on the North American Waterfowler YouTube channel, and that's where you're going to be able to see these in long form video. So if you like to see video alongside of your podcast, the North American Waterfowler YouTube channel is where you can do that. I'm going to upload this one right here. So starting today, I'm going to try to upload every single one of those. So go over to YouTube, subscribe, and get those. And also, I'm going to be releasing a bunch of shorts as well. And one thing I continue to forget to mention is that my hunts are on Roku. All you have to do is search Duck Hunting TV, and you can see all of my hunts over there. In fact, you can see all of Jake's hunts from Chasing Green over there as well. It's Duck Hunting TV. So there we go. So let's go ahead and get on with this right now as I bring on Matt Light and we have this about hour-long conversation. I think you're really going to enjoy it. So let's go ahead and bring on here Matt Light, 3-time Super Bowl winner, 11-year pro. How are you doing, Matt?
Buddy, I'm good so far down here in Florida. Hopefully, going to get rid of some of this milky white that I've accumulated over the winter, here being in the cold season. But down in Florida visiting grandma.
Right. And you live still around Boston because you played for the Patriots. So you live in the Boston area, right?
Yeah, we spend most of our time in Rhode Island. Just recently moved to Rhode Island from Massachusetts, and then we split. We're in Ohio where I grew up on our farm for most of the summer, and then I go back and forth quite a bit throughout the year. So yeah, Midwest to the Northeast and back.
Well, I got to admit, I am so excited to talk some football stuff with you. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about what have going on. I know it's around turkey hunting. So tell us about your background in turkey hunting, and what you've got going on with your foundation.
Well, playing football, you don't get an opportunity to spend as much time in the deer woods as you'd like to, right? I mean, deer season is crazy. I would get maybe, a handful of hunts in during, the season. But turkeys, well, that was the entire season, right? From start to finish. And I think my wife is a recovering turkey wife. She loses me for about 50 days every turkey season. But I fell in love with turkey hunting. I didn't have turkeys in Ohio growing up. First time I really ever hunted a turkey anyway, would have been in 2002, right after my rookie year with the Patriots. And we got a lot of birds in the Northeast. So, what we just launched is a sweepstake. It's a fundraiser for the Light Foundation. And we started the Light Foundation in 2001. And we do a lot of work with kids all over the country, but we use these sweepstakes to raise money. And in this case, we're documenting the story of the Tom Brady of turkey hunting. So Tom Brady was my quarterback, but and whether you like the Pats or not, or you like Tom Brady or not, he had a lot of success. And this is telling the story of a guy who had the most success you could ever have as a first-time hunter. He went out in the woods, first time ever hunting anything, and shot a world record, not just Osceola, but an albino Osceola. So we tell the story. It's got some amazing twists and turns to it. And at the end of it, we talk about our youth hunts that we put on through the Light Foundation, the kids that we take in the outdoors, and then we give a lucky winner an opportunity to get a chance to go down to the Gilchrist Club where this happened in Florida and have an all-expense-paid trip, airfare, lodging, the whole nine. I'll be there helping guide, and we're going to have a ball enjoying the great outdoors there in Florida. So that's what our sweepstakes is, turkeytouchdown.com. Go to turkeytouchdown.com, watch this amazing documentary, and you will be blown away.
So later on the podcast, are you comfortable with telling the story before people see the video?
Oh, yeah. Let's get into it at that time. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're going to go all through it. I watched the video this morning. It's about a 15-minute video. And I'm telling you guys, you've got to watch this video. It certainly has a twist. And I was all dragged into it. We'll go over it. We will definitely go over that later. So with your wildlife background, did you hunt and fish as you were growing up, or did you start? You said your first time you turkey hunted was your rookie season. What was your background as far as wildlife goes and hunting?
Yeah, man. I mean, I was fortunate. I grew up in a family of hunters. It's all we did. To be honest with you, most people don't believe this statistic, but I had never seen a college football game in my life, let alone a professional game, ever until I played in both. So, when I got to Purdue, that's the first time I'd ever seen a college football game. When I made it to New England, that was the first time I'd ever seen a professional game. I was in the outdoors 99% of my childhood, right? I mean,
Nice.
My great grandfather in the Outdoor Writers Association. My grandfather was good friends with Fred Bear. My dad grew up going up there. Everyone in my family, all the men anyway, were gunsmiths and bowyers. My father can, cut a stave off an Osage tree and use only stone tools to fashion any bow you could imagine, reflex, deflex, long bows, recurves,
Wow.
anything you could possibly imagine. Hand makes all of his own arrows, naps his own points. I mean, I'm the dumbest one of all of us, but I've enjoyed everything that the outdoors represents all of my life. And, whether it was going up to our hunting camp up in Michigan, chasing squirrels and rabbits, with mountain curs, or, I mean, just using dogs to just have the most fun you could have with small game, right? That was always our lives. That was our world. And so, football actually put a big damper on what I could do in the outdoors for quite a while. But it's always been a part of my life, man. Camping, pre-1800 encampments, what we called rendezvous. That was our vacations every summer, running around in a loincloth, setting up teepees and lean-tos. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just kind of how we were raised. Everybody in my family, my grandmother probably could outshoot, most of the people I've met in my life. So a lot of tradition, a lot of history, and I come from a little town in Ohio, West Central, called Greenville. So it's the home of Annie Oakley, which is kind of a big deal.
Right. Right. So at this point, you've been retired for how many years have you been retired?
About a decade, man. It flies by.
About 10
Yeah.
years. So are you mostly a turkey hunter, or do you deer hunt? Do you do any bird? What does your hunting calendar look like?
Yeah, I mean, if it falls into the category of consumption, I'm all in. So, in retirement, I've been able to do obviously a lot more deer hunting, take a lot more trips, love elk hunting. I mean, it's just a big turkey that talks a little bit different and lives in some pretty wild areas. Moose, turkey, bear, deer, of course. I love going to England. I got a dear friend of mine, who has introduced me to, just these incredible properties. We're able to stalk, deer that range from muntjac to Chinese water deer to roe deer and fallow deer. If I can eat it, I'm chasing it.
Right.
And when it comes to waterfowl, man, look, again, in the Northeast, we've got, incredible opportunities, whether it's sea ducks or, you're going to go out and, hammer on some geese or whatever it may be. I mean, it's an awesome spot, but we get after a little bit of everything. I do a lot of predator hunting this time of year, right? Like I think a lot of probably your listeners and guys that are into waterfowling, you gotta feed the addiction during some of the down times or when seasons start to shift or whatever. And so right now I'm heavy into predator mode.
I bet having that passion for the outdoors had to really help the transition. I would just assume someone who their entire life has become football, clear up and through their mid 30s, if you don't have that to fall back on, I would just think that it would be a very difficult transition for a football or a professional athlete that has no other passions. Like, what do I do with my time now? Whereas you can slide into another equally as strong passion. I bet that made the transition for you a lot easier than someone that didn't have a secondary passion to fall back on.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's definitely been guys that I played with that their identity was completely, surrounded by the game, right? Their interests. When they left the locker room and they went home, they were watching other teams. They were watching other plays. Again, for me, it just was never a part of my lifestyle. And that's not to say that, I didn't appreciate it. I mean, I appreciated every second of it. It just wasn't a major part of my life. When I left the field, I never thought of football. When I was there, it's the only thing I focused on. And we were there for, I don't know, in some cases, 100% of the daylight hours,
Right.
during the season. I mean, you're there before, the sun comes up, you leave, after it sets. Big part of my life, but definitely wasn't what defined me. I played football. It wasn't who I was, though. And, I think for me, the second that I was retired, man, I just tried to gobble up any opportunity to go and hunt with guys that, that I'd been friends with for a long time, and do the things that I couldn't do when I played.
Right. I would think that would have to be difficult going year after year, being at a complex that much. How difficult is that, like with your relationship with your wife and your family, to be playing professional football and devoting that much time? Do you wear down from it, or is it just something I'm so focused, I'm so driven, all the spotlights on that it's just I want to be here? Or how hard was that to keep your desire to put that much into football that many years?
I think when you're in it, it is what it is, as my former coach would say. And when you're playing for a guy like Bill Belichick, there is no margin for error. There's not. It's not as if you walk into Bill's office and you're like, "Hey, look, Bill, like we've been doing this for like every hour of every day. You mind if I just not come in tomorrow?" Never a question. So, I think too that when you're in a culture like that, you either become more like that, or you're not there any longer, and that's
Right.
kind of what it is in the National Football League. And as far as the relationships, and I mean, you're giving up a lot. I mean, you compromise a lot, whether it's your wife. My wife, was very forgiving, but we ended up having 3 kids during my career. Had our 4th shortly after I retired. She was putting up with a lot, dealing with a lot, and I'll tell you, probably who suffers the most are the actual coaches' wives, and their families. I mean, those guys, they don't ever go home. At least for us, we were able to go home. We had the NFLPA, the Players Association. There were certain things they couldn't, do to us. So, you make the best of your off season. You make the best of it when you're in season. And, I think probably the toughest things that you go through, really looking back on it, would be the adversity. The things like a major injury and the recovery and what you have to do to get yourself back on the field, or to relearn how to do certain things after a major breakdown. So those are the difficult parts, because those things come home with you, right? The pain, the surgeries. I've had 15 major surgeries in my life.
Wow.
13 when I was playing, whether it was college or the pros. And that's probably the most taxing on your family.
Do you feel, how does your body feel now from all of that time in football?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you got your ups and downs. And, I didn't reveal this until afterwards, but, at the same time I was dealing with the normal aches and pains, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in my rookie season. And, I never wanted that to be a talking point, so I never talked about it then. But, all those things add up, and you start feeling sorry for yourself some days. But the way I look at it is this: I knew what I was signing up for. I knew what it was going to do. I knew that I recovered pretty well. Which after 13 of those, I was like, oh well, Humpty Dumpty could get put back together again, apparently.
Right.
And I knew I was going to suffer a little bit, but there's amazing resources out there in terms of how you take care of yourself, what you use for supplements. And it forces you to educate yourself, right? And I mean, hey, look at the number of people that work, in a mine somewhere, or they're picking things up every day, or these repetitive jobs, right? I mean, there's somebody out there always hurting worse than you. So I always temper kind of how I feel with the realities of a lot of people have, and they don't have the resources I do. So all in all, I feel very fortunate to feel as good as I do, really.
That's great. Let's back up into your high school to college days. Now, I played college baseball at real low level. My dream in high school was always to be contacted by Division I. I mean, Division I when you're in high school is always the goal. And it didn't come true for me. So I'm curious, at what point in your high school career did you realize, I'm really good at this? I'm going to have the opportunity to go to a Division I. How did that feel? How did that change your emotions in your life?
I mean, I think there probably was. I mean, I know there was a point. It was my senior year that I was like, oh wow, this is actually happening. Like I'm going here and doing this. I don't know that I ever felt that that I had it figured out, or that I was like, on this unbelievable trajectory. I mean, if anything, it was just the opposite. I mean, I was a fish out of water. I had no idea, what the college game was all about. Never saw a game. For
So it
me,
wasn't on your radar, really. It wasn't a big patch like I'm gonna be D1. It just kind of fell in your lap.
literally fell in my lap. I mean, I can remember my high school coach came up to me and he said, "Hey," and this is my junior year probably. He goes, I'm getting some guys that are coming by and they're asking about you. I don't know how many games we won in high school, but it probably wasn't more than 7 for my entire high school career, right? We were not a powerhouse. And again, middle of nowhere, small town, kind of a situation, but we played against some pretty good players, right? And in Ohio, there's football's a big deal, and I think it was those other players that they were watching, and then they saw this, somewhat gangly, awkward, kid from Greenville, and so they started looking into it. I took some different trips to different schools, going into my senior year, and that's when it started to hit me that I may have a shot at playing at the college level. From there, once I committed to Purdue, I had taken trips to a number of different schools. That's when it kind of hit me that, hey, this is going to be interesting to see what happens. But I never felt like I made it, And I honestly, all the way until they signed me in New England, I kind of figured at each step along the way they were going to figure out they made a terrible mistake.
Right.
And I remember checking in to the Purdue Student Union as a true freshman. And I looked to my left, and I got this guy. Both of them were from Tennessee, actually. I got David Nugent, who ended up playing with us, or playing with me in New England as a D tackle. And I also then looked to I had Colin Bryant Jr., whose father played in the league. Both these guys are benching over 500 pounds.
Oh, my gosh.
I'd never seen a weight room. I hadn't done anything in a weight room
Really?
in my life. I was just a country boy that enjoyed playing the game. I didn't go to jail when I hit people on the field, and I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah. So in high school, you played linebacker and tight end mostly, right?
I did, yeah. It was linebacker was probably my number one thing. It's what I loved the most, and tight end is a bit of a misnomer given the fact that I was an offensive lineman my entire life, and that I pulled a kid off of the tight end position so that I could play maybe twice, and the coach almost kicked me off the team both times. But one of those times, my quarterback threw me a ball, and I caught it, ran it in for a touchdown. And I think the scouts must have seen that because they thought I could play tight end, and that's what I went to Purdue as, was a tight end. And then I figured out how to not do the things at tight end that you have to do well, and they put me back where I deserved to be, and that was on the offensive line. And I swallowed a couch, overate a little bit in college. So
right, because you're 6'4", about 6'4", 6'5", right?
Yep.
And you weighed, how much did you weigh coming out of high school?
I was probably 220 coming out of high school. I probably played at 240. I started at tight end only because the tight end of Purdue, was out for that season. The guy that was starting ahead of me before I got there. And I played probably 240 at tight end my true freshman year. Then I took a year off and swallowed a couch, as I like to say. And that's also when we had transition. We went from Joe Tiller, who's the head coach, to not Joe Tiller. Sorry, Joe Tiller came in as a new head coach, right? So when Joe Tiller came in, I shouldn't have been a tight end anyway, but I sure as heck wasn't going to be a tight end in his system. So he sat me down and said, "Hey, look, if you want to play, you need to put some weight on and think about playing tackle." So rest was history.
And at what point in college, when you went to college, did you have any aspirations for the NFL? Or you're like, wow, let's just see where this goes? And at what point did you realize, this NFL may actually be obtainable?
Yeah, it was honestly my junior year. We're playing in the Outback Bowl. We had played in the Alamo Bowl twice and then the Outback Bowl. And it was actually down at the Outback Bowl down in Florida that, I had some people come up to me and these different agents and whatnot. They find their way into certain places. They're not supposed to be talking to you necessarily, but they do. And I remember I had some agents come up and, said, "Hey, man, you should consider coming out early." And I thought that was a very ridiculous statement. So going into my senior year, I had a thought that maybe it would be possible. But it wasn't until after my senior year, we went to the Rose Bowl. Drew Brees was my quarterback the whole time I played left tackle at Purdue. It was hard for, obviously between Drew Brees and Tom Brady, we had decent quarterbacks. It was tough for me to get those guys to learn the technique. I mean, I worked with them over and over again. No, luckiest left tackle in the history of the world.
Right.
But that said, right?
But the most pressure, I mean, left tackle.
Well, you can look at it both ways, right? They're going to get rid of the ball and make really good decisions and do it in time and in rhythm. So that makes my life a lot easier. And yeah, I mean, maybe there's going to be some football playing Jessies across the line that have their ears pinned back and they want to inflict a little extra damage. Yeah, I mean, but it was always, look, the way I looked at it was a one-on-one battle. Every week was going to be tough. When you're playing the left tackle position, it is what it is, man. That's what comes with the territory.
I can't imagine how that would feel to make a technical mistake. The guy gets around you and just crushes Tom Brady, and it's all your fault.
Well,
that had to happen a few times, right?
Several examples. Yeah.
How does that feel walking back to the huddle? You just keep your head down and don't make eye contact, or
you know what, man? I never thought about it. I mean, I think there's a trust that you build up, right? Like, it'd be one thing if you got somebody, and this happens in the real world all the time, right? You got a guy sitting in the office next to you. He does about half the work. It's easy to see. Everybody realizes it, right? So when that dude makes a mistake, it's real easy to go over and be like, well, yeah, if you didn't suck, that would never happen, right?
Right.
And so for me, whether it was my fault or someone else's fault, like we see it every day. Like we evaluate in real time every day, every practice, every snap, every walkthrough. Like everything we do is recorded. And therefore, like we know the people that are putting in the work. And oh, by the way, especially when you get in the league, if you're not willing to do the work, you won't be out there. I mean, there's no way you touch the field. So when a mistake's made, there was nobody more upset than me, when I give up a play. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side, you got to reconcile the fact that they're getting paid too,
Right.
And so you're going to give up some of those. What hurts is when you give up multiple, like in the same game, or God forbid you make the same mistake or a mental error. Those are the things that kill you. The things that you shouldn't have done. When they beat you, they flat out beat you, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not fun, but
is there any defensive pass rusher that you just felt was the most difficult individual to block out of all of them?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I played against greats. I'm not taking anything away from, heck, in my own division, right? In the AFC East, I had Aaron Schobel twice a year in Buffalo. Great guy, had a hell of a motor, really good technician. I had John Abraham, who was a perennial terror, guy long, lanky, really skilled in a lot of different things, and he was with the Jets. And then, of course, we had Jason Taylor down in Miami, and that guy, had a tool chest. He could do all kind of things to you, make you look bad. So I played against a lot of really good players. Javon Curses, the Freaks, you name it. They go on and on. The best that I think has ever played the position, though, is that number 93 in Indianapolis, Dwight Freeney.
Right.
Dwight Freeney had, some of the best talent in areas that, you just don't see very often. I mean, if you had one move as a defensive end in the National Football League that you could consistently win with, not every time, but you consistently win with, you'd be a Pro Bowler. Just one move. One move. That's all it took. One move that you consistently win with. It could be speed to power. Could be a bull rush. Could be a spin move. One of those. Well, he had all three of those that I just mentioned. And he could also skin the edge. I mean, he did a lot of things very, very well. And, man, it was a challenge every time you had to go face a guy like that. Man, he made you work for it.
Just being the common man, when I go to, whether it's a Division I or a professional football game, and you see guys like you and guys you played with up close, the thing that just blows my mind is the quickness and speed at that size. I tell my kids, I'm like, we're watching this, and I was like, these people are they have superpowers. I mean, these are like freaks of nature in the most excellent positive way you can think of. The jumping, the quickness, the speed. It's superhuman. It's superhuman.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks that way. I can tell you, if you do it every day, right? If you're out there and you're working, you got to imagine, like, even during the season, right? We're working out 3 days a week on top of the endless amounts of practice time that you're going through. Once you get your body conditioned to do the kind of things that are required to survive a 16 or 17 week season, or if you make it into the playoffs, a 21-week season. I mean, you're hardened, you're battle ready, and I would say this in today's game. You back up a very short time ago, right? 10, 11 years ago, when I retired, we had just signed the new CBA. 2011, we signed, or we went into a little bit of a work stoppage going into the 2012 season, or 2010 to 2011 rather. In 2011, we got the new CBA signed, and I played under that for 1 year, and in that CBA, they did away with a lot of the practice.
Mm-hmm.
And when they took that practice away, it was under the, I don't want to say, I should say, actually I do, the guise of, we want to make the game safer. Well, the reality is the game is less safe today. There's more, the rate of injury has increased.
Really?
And the number of players that go down due to these injuries, season-ending injuries, has increased. So, in my opinion, it's because they're not practicing enough. They went too far in one way, right? Well,
Right.
and you can't hit anybody anymore. I mean, if you see a good football play today, it's probably going to be accompanied by a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
The way that they protect quarterbacks is a joke at this point. It feels like watching the game. Some of the flags, you're just like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I want to see the game thrive. I know how many young people need the game, to teach them discipline and work ethic and all the things that go into, being anyone in sports, in that matter, but definitely in football. I mean, football demands a lot from you, but they're not doing the right thing for the game, in my opinion. I mean, we practiced hard back in the day, and to be honest with you, I needed it. If I didn't practice during the week, I didn't feel right going into a game.
Right. Your body probably gets used to the hits. Is that the thought, or is it a conditioning thing, or is it just being used to being hit?
Yeah,
as far
well,
as injuries?
it's all of the above, right? I mean, you have all these proprioceptive muscles and all these things that happen when you actually go through, like, the drills at like 90%. I mean, you're not going 100% in practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in some cases you are for the little things, but in the game, you definitely going to take it up a little bit of a notch. But, I mean, even with that said, I mean, these guys are practicing at like 20% now. So their bodies aren't able to absorb, a lot of these impacts the way they used to be because, they don't see it enough, right? So it's like anything else. Through repetition and hard work and just staying after it, you can accomplish and overcome about anything. And you need that in a game of football.
All right, guys, we're going to take a real quick break to hear from the sponsors. And when we come back, I've got a couple more football questions for Matt Light, 11-year football player for the Patriots, 3-time Super Bowl champion, and avid turkey hunter. He's got a sweepstakes I want you guys to hear about. And when we come back, a couple more football questions, and then we will get right into this amazing story about the Tom Brady of turkey hunting. We will be right back. All right, guys, thank you for hanging on during the break. Like I said, I got a couple more football questions, and then I cannot wait for you guys to hear this story about the Tom Brady of turkey hunting from Matt Light, former Patriot football player, and he's in the New England Patriot Hall of Fame 2018. How emotional was that for you to be inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame?
Yeah, listen, I think as a guy that didn't, again, grow up, idolizing a certain team or a player or whatever else, for me, the journey in football was exceptional. I mean, I learned to have this great appreciation for the guys that played ahead of me. I was part of the NFLPA on the Players Association side as a rep, and then on the executive committee, and I got to meet all these amazing players. I mean, heck, just the guys that came through New England in my 11-year career, We played in 5 Super Bowls, 6 AFC Championship games. Um, just all the success we had, but the guys we did it with, that was the best part. I mean, we had
Right.
fun too.
Right.
We had a lot of fun.
What an
So
amazing experience to be on that team during that time.
yeah, it was. I mean, it's impossible to really put it into words or to summarize it, because each season was so different too. You had all these different eras.
Hmm.
We had the Randy Moss era. We had the Julian Edelman era. We had
Hmm.
going all the way back to the Troy Browns and the Kevin Falks and the Corey Dillon when he came in from Cincinnati. I mean, all these different players and at all these different points in time, and to be able to be included amongst some of the greats, right? Especially that have come through New England and been a part of the Patriots organization was beyond humbling. So, it's a very cool moment to share that with your family and your friends. To have them, there for that moment. Definitely won't forget that anytime soon.
And those offensive lines on those teams were an integral part of the success. And to be the left tackle, the leader, I would assume the left tackle is, I know the center left tackle, but to be on those type of offensive lines during that run, that has to just be just such an accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, and just the guys that were on that line, Logan Mankins, you know, just with his giant hands, from California, this cowboy that came in and man, that was one of the best wingmen you could ever ask for. The Dan Copens and the Joe Andruzzi's and what Joe Andruzzi and his brothers represented during 9/11. He had 3 brothers as firefighters, fighting in the towers and doing everything when 9/11 happened. I mean, it was an amazing run with a lot of incredible players, the Steve Neals and the Dan Copens, and I could go on and on and on about the guys we played with. But we had a great line. Everybody wanted the same thing. We wanted to get better every day, and we wanted to
Right.
go out there. We wanted to prove it every day, and we did an all right job.
Yes, you did. You did pretty well. So I've grown up in Kansas. I live in the Kansas City area. I've been a Kansas resident my entire life. I've been watching the Chiefs since 1980, and we've never had a decent quarterback ever until Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it's just been so difficult to be a Chiefs fan. And then all of a sudden we stumble into this, which is, I always tell my dad, do you think we'll ever make the Super Bowl before we die? And I mean, it's just heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. And then the Patriots kind of hand off the baton to the Chiefs. And now we've got this. Do you have any thoughts of the Chiefs where they're at now and compared to the dynasty that you were a part of compared to what the Chiefs are experiencing now?
Yeah, I mean, I people ask me all the time about the comparison, and I would say this: like, I love Andy Reid. I think Andy Reid's an incredible coach. I like the way he coaches, and I like the way they play. I like the discipline that they take. I mean, they got some guys that can make some big plays on both sides of the ball and on special teams. Again, and they're really well coached, right? The run, I mean, 4 out of the last 5, right? I mean,
Right.
that's insane. And I think it speaks to a lot of things, but I think you do have to have the comparison, right? Because really nobody had done what we did, and now you're seeing where a team has the opportunity to do it. Tommy, here in New England, 6 Super Bowls, right? That was crazy at the time. People thought that'd never be done again. Well, they're the only ones that could do it, right? And they're definitely knocking on that door. So, I understand the comparisons, and I think it's fair to do it. I can tell you one thing: I'm not a big fan, of how some of the things are going in Kansas City, namely with 2 of their top dogs. You look at a guy like Travis Kelce. It drove me nuts listening to some of his comments. Politics. Girlfriend.
Right.
Pfizer. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, we used to never do
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So that was
Right.
disappointing.
Yes.
And then, running into your coach in the biggest game where you have, I don't know how many tens of millions of people watching. I mean, to me, it's what message does that send the next generation?
Right.
Who, oh, by the way, are being told how great they are in grade school now, right? And they know they're going to get paid to go to college because you have the NIL and you have the transfer portal. I mean, it's really tearing apart the game, in my opinion, and that's why I think it's more important than ever that these guys that all these young people look up to, who are in the biggest games, right? That they conduct themselves appropriately, do
Absolutely.
the right things. So, listen, taking nothing away from them, they're a phenomenal team. And by the way, when a guy goes down, the next guy up has been performing, incredibly well. So even their backups. So it just tells you that's a really well coached, well run organization.
I am glad that you brought that up. I'm really curious about that. When he bumped into Andy Reid, now Andy Reid blew it off like it was no big deal, and I would assume behind closed doors he probably had some words for Kelce about it. And Kelce's been a work in progress. He did some of the stupidest things at the beginning of his career, and he's been able to tame him a little bit. But who he is as an individual in his regular life probably doesn't match up with a lot of my ideology and everything. But when he bumped Andy Reid, it's not that he was just upset. I mean, that was nose to nose in his face, veins bulging on his forehead. That couldn't have been something that Andy Reid behind the scenes was happy about.
No, yeah, it doesn't really matter what he says. I mean, look, I'm a big believer in, there's no need to take things into the general public's realm that you need to deal with internally, right? So I don't have a problem with what he said in terms of like the head coach and what Andy, said publicly, right? Because I'm sure he's going to deal with it the way he needs to deal with it or the way he feels he does. But look, if you're acting that way towards your head coach,
Right.
the number one guy in charge, the only message that sends is, I know how to do your job better than you do. That's it.
Right.
It doesn't matter what he wants to say about that. It doesn't matter what his rebuttal would be to that. If you act that way in front of the entire world or at any point, even behind closed doors, for God forbid, you're telling your head coach that you know how to do his job better than he does. And that's clearly not the case. I mean, you let Travis Kelce run that team, and I promise you, it'll be in the ground before.
Yeah, and you're taking it to a physical level. You're not just telling him that, you're getting physical. He almost knocked him down.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate to see, and I think it goes for a lot of these players. I mean, even like a guy like Patrick Mahomes, right? You go back to that point in the season earlier where they had that unbelievable play, right, where they throw it back to Kelce, and one of his receivers is offsides, and man, he lost his mind on that.
Yes, he did.
Again, in full view of the world. And, some people that don't even know football would look at it and be like, it looks like he's pouting, right? I mean, but if you know football, you look at it and say, like, hey, man, just, what do you want? Special treatment because you're Patrick Mahomes, right? Like your receiver was clearly offsides.
Clearly offsides.
And, so again, to me, and I understand, man, tempers flare. You do things you wish you had back. I mean, I'd be the first to admit that there's many things that I wish I could take back, and I'm glad people don't hold it against me. But you would hope that their comments coming out of that, and even publicly would be like, hey, I shouldn't have done that. I know better than that. I shouldn't have acted that way. But too often today, you never hear that, from these people that are being idolized by young people. Young people need to know that that's not acceptable,
Right.
under any circumstance, right? And again, that's on their shoulders. With great fame comes great responsibility, or that should. And so I would like to see where you have these guys, do things with integrity more, think about that image more, and give that, give the game what it deserves, right? Because football is a great tool, but if we don't start guarding it more, it's just going to become all about the money, all about the fame, right? And that would be a shame.
Yeah, well, we certainly are in a moral crisis in this country. There is no doubt about that. And hopefully within the next 10 years, 20 years, things will go the opposite direction. But, with social media and the technology, we are certainly in a moral crisis. I'm going to get one more football question, and then we're going to get back into the sweepstakes and the Tom Brady of turkey hunting story. But I am curious to ask this. In Super Bowl 46, It was Patriots. You guys were playing against the Giants, and you guys ended up losing that game. And I was looking at the stats of it, and the perception, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that Steve Spagnuolo had a big impact, and the pressure that was able to be put on Tom Brady had a big impact. And I'm curious, as a Chiefs fan and Steve Spagnuolo being our defensive coordinator, what did he do something different in that game that they were able to put so much pressure on Tom Brady that other defensive coordinators didn't do? Because I know you guys struggled a little more with the rush in that game than you had in the regular season. What are your thoughts on what caused that issue? Or am I off track and that really didn't play as big a part in the game as my perception?
No, I mean, listen, I mean, Spags is unbelievable defensive coordinator, right? Has been for a long, long, long time. I think in that game, from what I remember, that was the last game I played in. I was ready
Oh,
to
really?
off
Oh,
sunset
man.
after that.
Man.
Yeah, and I had a year left on my contract, but for me it was time to hang it up and do other things like get in the woods and do a little hunting. I think if you really look at that game, right? Like I don't even think they recorded a sack. I know they had a lot of rushes. I know they had a lot of pressures. It was a low scoring game by all standards, right? It was two defenses that played really well. Our defense played really well. Their defense played really well. They definitely got a number of pressures. Justin Tuck had a great game, and he's a great player and played really at a high level for a long time. I think it just came down to with the time that each offense had, they were able to capitalize on one extra drive, right? So I mean, we're pretty much tied. We had a slight lead, but we're pretty much tied throughout the entire game. And then in the fourth quarter, I think they were the only ones to score in the fourth quarter. So I remember coming out of halftime, we had a good drive to kick off the third quarter. But it's the kind of game you expect, right? He does a great job as a coordinator getting his guys ready, brings a lot of passion. They played at a very high level. Their secondary played really well. Their guys up front didn't give Tommy a whole bunch of time. But it was a dogfight, and it's the way, we kind of figured it would go. They just were able to capitalize at the very end. And look, we had, I don't know, a little less than a minute, 50, 55 seconds, whatever it was, to go down and win it, at the very end and just couldn't get it done. Made a few mistakes. I think there was maybe one turnover in that game, right? So, look, it was tight. No sacks. They didn't record a sack. They got one turnover. And typically, if you win a turnover battle, you win the game. I don't think they gave up the ball offensively. So
you didn't feel like there was anything that happened that was out of the usual, that you were having more problems with other teams. It was just a grinded out game that you guys lasted at the very end.
Part, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a really tough-nosed game. And again, I think that was the expectation. We got it. And if there was 4 more minutes left, maybe we could have tied it up. Who knows? But not the way it went, man.
Well, a minute 50 with Tom Brady and the ball is normally a pretty good position for you guys to be in.
A minute 50, we may have gotten it done, but I think we had less than a minute, if I remember.
Oh, less than a minute. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was about 50 some odd seconds. And listen, that's been enough time in the past too. It just wasn't enough time in that one.
Right. Well, thank you for taking the time to share those NFL thoughts with me. I find it fascinating. I know my listeners are as well. Let's jump back into the turkey stuff. But before you tell the story of Tom Brady turkey hunting story, or the Tom Brady of turkey hunting, tell us again about the sweepstakes and how can people enter it?
Yeah, so if you go to turkeytouchdown.com, you can see the video. You can also enter in and get as many tickets as you want, right? So I believe it's $10 a ticket, and we're going to draw a number of winners, but our grand prize winner will get a chance to go down, or not a chance, they're going to go down, all expense paid trip, airfare, lodging, and you're going to stay at the Gilchrist Club. And this place is second to none. I mean, it's as good of an experience in the outdoors as you could ever wish for. The food, the accommodations, and we're going to be hunting Osceolas in Florida. I'll be there. I'll be helping guide. We're going to have a ball. They got a ton of other cool things to do while we're down there. Fishing, of course. It's Florida. So that's what the sweepstakes is all about. We've also got some other great packages. Mossberg's going to be throwing in a shotgun of the winner's choice. So that'll be phenomenal. We've got Struck Commander, Quaker Boy, Hooks Custom Calls, a lot of great prizes, secondary prizes as well. But as far as this legendary documentary, the tale of the Tom Brady of turkey hunting goes, you know, it starts out with a board member for the Light Foundation. And he says to me, I got this place down in Florida. A friend of mine's a member. You can only go there if you're a member, and we can sell this at our big event. Okay. So we have this thing called the Celebrity Shootout. It takes place in September. We sell this hunt to go down to turkey hunt at the Gilchrist Club in Florida. And my friend that helped us get this I said to him, hey, you got to come down. You've never hunted anything. So he comes down the trip. He's a little bit nervous. What do I need? I tell him what he needs to get. I teach him some turkey hunting techniques, which you'll see on this video. And on day 2, he ends up killing the ghost of Gilchrist, which he had heard about since the day he got down there. And when he kills this thing, he looks it up and quickly realizes he has a world record. And he wasn't wrong. He killed a massive albino Osceola, all white. 2 months later, he gets a call from Florida Game and Fish. He's featured on the cover of their magazine. And so the hunt, we sold it in September. The hunt took place in March. The following September, we're going to sell the same hunt at the same event. So I said, Jamie, you got to get up on stage. I want you to tell your version of what happened. No problem. And by the way, he was signing, they gave us 200 copies of the magazine. He was signing the magazine for people at the event. He gets up on stage. I hand him a mic. He says, you're looking at the world record, a 44-pound albino Osceola. It's all in this video, in this documentary. He talks about being the Tom Brady of turkey hunting.
Is he the first one that coined that phrase, or had you guys been saying that?
He said it live and in person in front of 500 people. I'm the Tom Brady of turkey hunting. He then said, I killed the Moby Dick of turkey. And of course, when you grow up in New England, as Jamie did, it's turkey. You know, there's no R's, right? So it was a hilarious moment. But we show the video on stage, and he had never seen it. So here he is a year later. Now he's an accomplished turkey hunter. He'd been wearing me out about all the years that I've spent turkey hunting, never killed a world record, never been featured on a magazine. He's got this bird mounted proudly in his home. Anybody that knows him, that knows me, he's, just throwing it at me. And in front of 500 people on that stage, he found out that he actually killed a broad-breasted white turkey that I bought at a farm. And as ridiculous as this sounds, I have to tell you, when you watch this video, tears, because in front of 500 people, he's looking at the screen when he realizes that he just killed and mounted and was signing, magazine covers. My brother called as the head of Florida Game and Fish. None of it was real. I mean, it was one of the greatest moments of my life, and you get to see it all unfold in real time on the stage.
Oh man, how fun. I was telling you this off air. I was watching that this morning. I did not know that this was a prank. And I didn't realize till the end that he was part of a member of I thought it was just some guy off the street that you didn't even know at the beginning of it. And so you've got footage of him stalking this turkey. And I'm not an avid turkey hunter, but I've done a lot of turkey hunting in my time. In fact, at one point in time, it was my passion in high school, even though I labeled myself the world's worst turkey hunter at one point in time because I was incompetent at killing them with a bow. But anyway, he's stalking this thing, and I'm thinking that something. He's just like out in the open. There's this turkey. He's just stalking it. He shoots the thing just standing there.
So on that point, I just got to tell you, that was part of my training regimen to him. I took an old Primos. It looked like a dinner plate tail fan that they used to sell these like in decoy kits, right? And I handed it to him, and I told him, if you hold this in front of you and squat down like a sumo wrestler, you can walk right at him. You just keep turning the tail fan back and forth like this, right? And if you watch that video, it's exactly what he did. And clearly it worked.
Obviously, something as I was watching it, I've done enough turkey hunting and go, there's something off about this. But I didn't know there was a prank. And so we've got the podcast in a couple hours. I'm thinking, I know this guy's reputable, but this is obviously like off somehow. And I started getting nervous. I'm like, are these guys really going to pass this off as a real turkey? I mean, obviously he shoots it, it's still standing there. And then at the end, it all came together that it was a prank, a full year long prank. That's some dedication to that.
Yeah, and the things that happened in between, if I could have recorded them somehow, I mean, the funniest, we're leaving an airport, Jamie and I, and this little tiny Greenbrier, the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia, we're leaving there, and they got this little tiny airport, and he's a salesman, and we're in a very rural area, and he looks at the guy that's checking us in, and he goes, "Hey, you guys must hunt a lot around here." And I know where this is going, right? I know he's going to bring up his bird, and I'm a little nervous. And this guy, good old boy behind the counter, he's like, "Oh yeah, man, we hunt a lot around here." And he's like, "You got many turkeys?" And he's like, "Oh man, yeah, we hunt a lot of turkeys. We got a lot of big birds." And he goes, "You ever killed one this big?" And he hands him his phone. And the guy looks at it, and he goes, "Well, hell, son, we got about 10,000 of those just down the road in the barn." And I'm behind him going, "Don't do it." And so Jamie, it flew right over his head. He had no idea what he was talking about. And after Jamie goes through security, I'm standing there with the guy, and I told him why he said that. The guy literally fell to his knees. If I could have recorded that scenario, you would have died.
Right. And those of you that are listening, I'm gonna put a link to this video on the Facebook group, the North American Waterfowler Podcast Facebook group. So if you don't, you can go to Matt's website, check out this video, or if you're a part of the Facebook group, you can just go to the Facebook group and see the video there. It is definitely worth viewing. I know Willie Robertson's on there, and they're interviewing him. He's kind of part of it a little bit as well. So definitely something that you guys have to check out and make sure that you see. One thing I really like about your foundation, Matt, is that you're focused on the youth. I don't know if you've caught wind of this, but there is a growing movement of people that don't want to introduce and bring other people into the sport. People who feel like our public lands are overcrowded to the point where we want less hunters, not more. And I completely disagree with that. I think kids more than ever need mentors. They need to be brought into it the right way. And I love that about your foundation, that you're focused on the youth. Can you talk a little bit about your philosophy and why you decide to go down this route with the youth?
Yeah, I think first off, what we focus on through the Light Foundation is just creating better leaders, right? Or giving some kids opportunities to be around great leaders, CEOs, and, whether they're in business or in sports or in any walk of life, right? We want to introduce kids to help ignite their own passions and give them, great role models and give them some of the tools, right? Some of the things that, either made me successful on the field that I learned from coaches or, the things that people instilled in my life through my family. And, we love working with kids, but the outdoors is such a natural tool, right? Especially for the way I grew up. But, look, let's face it. If you're going to take a kid out into the woods, right, and give them an opportunity to hunt, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of boxes they have to check, right? First of all, they got to wake up on time. They got to wake up early.
Right.
They have to, go out and have a hunter education course that they complete, right? And time that they put in to learn about gun safety and just, woodsmanship and just the general things that you need to know, to go out and harvest an animal, right? So there's skin in the game, right? And these are all great things for kids to learn. But for us, we take it a step further. If you want to be a part of our youth turkey hunts, you have to do all the above to be legal to hunt in whatever state we do it in, whether it's Ohio or Rhode Island. But you also have to commit to community service hours. And those are, for us, centered around conservation. Teaching them about hinge cutting and habitat restoration and all the things that so many outdoorsmen, so many hunters do on a daily basis to make sure that we can ensure that we have these opportunities in the future. you got all these people that want to talk about, well, we got to have open land and we got to have this, that, and the other. Very few of them actually put boots on the ground. Whereas, if you're a duck hunter, you're going out and you're doing all kind of habitat restoration programs. You're doing all kind of things with your waterways and how you divert things and how you flood fields and how you mow down some corn and things that are sustainable for the very species that you're going after. Because hey, if you don't, you're not going to have those opportunities. So,
Right.
By very nature of what we do, now we know that, but so many young people only hear the other side, right? Oh, you shouldn't go out and shoot an animal. Oh, that's not right to hunt. It's not fair for the, well, okay. Or how about the fact that they have a sense of accomplishment, that they not only were able to have this unbelievable experience out in the woods, but they harvested an animal that they'll never forget that moment, and they'll be able to share that turkey breast or that duck breast or that venison or whatever it may be with everybody in their family, let alone all their friends and everyone else. I mean, to me, and at this point in my life, that's the most fun I have, man. I mean, I love butchering. I love sharing that resource that isn't chock full of all the junk the FDA allows to flow through our veins on a base. Every day people are eating stuff they shouldn't eat. Yet we have all this other stuff that is real. And that's what we like to introduce to these kids. So, man, it's awesome to see the success. And for us, success is, them just getting to hear a gobble in the woods or to see a deer run past them or a coyote or whatever it may be. And if they get to harvest a bird, even better.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Well, I appreciate you being on here. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that I didn't hit before we sign off here?
Man, no, I just appreciate it. I think as outdoorsmen, just like I was saying with these sports figures, right? We have an obligation, I think, to tell the right story. So, the next time you want to post that picture holding that big deer or whatever it may be, put a little something else in there of substance that goes beyond, just the hunt. That would be my challenge to all of us, right? We have to do a better job of telling our story than what the other side does today. And honestly, if we don't, we can't really complain about what's going on because education is key. Most people just don't understand why we're passionate about what we do because they only see it through one lens. So it's up to us to change that narrative.
Well, I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. Congratulations on your NFL career and congratulations on what you have going now. Tell the audience one more time, where can they reach you? Where can they get signed up to the sweepstakes?
Yeah, so if you want to learn about what we do at the Light Foundation, mattlight72.com, just like Bud Light, but Matt. Okay, probably shouldn't have used that analogy. mattlight72.com, and then if you want to get in on this sweepstake and check out the Tom Brady of turkey hunting, go to turkeytouchdown.com. Thanks a lot.
Fantastic. And guys, I will also have a link to the video and Matt's site on the podcast group, the North American Waterfowler podcast. So thank you for your time with me. If you ever need anything in the future, you want to make a return visit, don't hesitate to reach out. I've had a great time talking to you today, Matt. Signing off. Until next time, you've listened to another episode of the North American Waterfowler podcast.